Welcome to Fat Man's Kitchen. Today we're making vegetable jello. Let's go. What's going on, fish fam? Today we're going to be making some snail jello, snello if you will. Real quick before we get started, I want to take a minute to shout out two channels that gave me the motivation to try this. That's Lavs Snails, as well as Jadren Aquatics. The concepts that I came up with here were mostly through watching their videos, as well as a few forums I read. I'm actually going to put links for both those channels and a forum link to a whole list of food items you can use for your snails. Today, I'm just going to use canned green beans and canned carrots. Make sure you get the no salt added. Anyone who's ever been an evil little kid or around an evil little kid knows exactly what happens when you add salt to snails. So make sure everything you're doing is the no salt added. You can use frozen, you can use fresh. If you use fresh, I would recommend going with organic or really washing it. You don't want to add any pesticides to your aquariums. Now the vegetables, there's all kinds of different options. Like I said, it's a great source of vitamins and minerals, but they're not a great source of proteins, so you need to add something else for the protein. And today I'm just going to use some leftover fish food that I didn't care for, as well as some freeze-dried bloodworms. This is 50% protein. This specific brand is 46% protein. So they'll get plenty of protein from that. You also want to have some source of calcium for your snails. It's what promotes their shell growth, but you don't want too much, or they can actually develop kind of like a gallstone. They can develop hard little forms. These specific vegetables are actually 2% calcium. So my mix is already going to have 2%, but on top of that, my water content in my aquariums is high in minerals, so I don't want to add it to the food. But if you need to add it, you can buy calcium powders online. There are some people that crush up Tums. The only thing with Tums is there are other ingredients and there are sugars, and high levels of sugars in your aquarium can help spike ammonia, so just something to watch for. Not shooting against it, just something to watch for. Okay, so some other things you're going to need. You're obviously going to need gelatin. My understanding is there's also some stuff called agar-agar. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, it's a vegan item that does the same thing as gelatin. You're going to need some type of container to pour the mixture in while it solidifies. Be that throwaway containers or whatever, at your discretion. You're going to need boiling water. In this case, I'm just doing water in a Pyrex measuring cup so that I can heat it up in the microwave. This is to mix your gelatin in and to get it nice and blended out before we add it to the mixture. Speaking of blenders, you're going to need some type of blender, food processor, or if you're going to do it by hand, way more patience than me. I don't have the patience to mash all this up by hand. I'm just going to use a blender and clean it really well when I'm done with it. Another thing it wouldn't hurt to have is a glorious smile. Alright, I'm going to be doing the blending off camera because no one wants to hear that noise. It's bad enough you have to hear my voice. You definitely don't want to hear this too. So the first thing we're going to do is get these cans opened and put in the blender. I'll be right back. Okay, so we've got the green beans, the carrots into the blender. I want to take a quick second to say something. Everyone I watched use canned products dumps the water right in there with it. I didn't. And I'm in no way saying that I have a problem with them doing it. I'm in no way saying that it's going to hurt anything. And I am in no way claiming to know anything about anything. But I will explain why I didn't use the water in here. I am using straight well water at my house. There's no chlorine, no chloramine, nothing like that in my water already. So I use no dechlorinators or water conditioners in my aquariums. It's straight water for me. Now, most factories are in the city, and the can doesn't say that they're using filtered water, it just says water. So I'm a little leery that there might be traces of chlorine or chloramine in that water because that's human safe. They don't have to worry about it. And since I don't use any type of water conditioners, I don't want to add any of that to my aquariums. Again, I'm not saying that's true. It's just a fear I have, and I couldn't find anything on the internet to make that fear go away. So I'm going to be adding my own water. I drained as much of the juice as I could out of these carrots and green beans, added them in here. Now I'm going to be adding the fish food. And some of these freeze-dried bloodworms. And to anyone that sees me using my blender to do this, know that this thing will be bleached and it's not something we really use. We have a food processor to process our food, and when my wife makes smoothies or anything like that, she's got one of those little ninja blenders. This thing hasn't been used in forever, so it's going to become a fish blender. All right, I'm going to step off camera and I'm going to get this blended up. I'll be right back. Okay, we got that all blended up. After blending it all down, it yielded about 2 cups of puree. I'm going to be adding another cup of hot water with the mixed gelatin into it. So I should have about 3 cups of product. The research I looked into showed that if for regular Jello consistency, it's 1/4 ounce of gelatin to 1 cup of ingredient. We want to go firmer than that, or at least I want to go firmer than that. So I'm going to double the gelatin. I'm going to do 2 to 1. All the recipes I could find for stuff like gummies, like gummy candies, gummy bears, that type of thing that people make homemade, they're doing like a 3 to 1 ratio. And I think that's going to be a little too firm. So for this first batch, I'm going to stick with 2 to 1 and see how it goes. We can always make adjustments to the final, not the final, but the next batch, or the final recipe, if you will, when it's as we've done. Like I said, it's my first time making it myself, so I want to play with it and see how it works anyways. Alright, I'm going to get that water boiled up and I'll be right back to mix in the gelatin and add it to the mixture. Okay, we got our water heated up, so now we're going to add our gelatin. I'm using Knox brand and I'm using the little packets. It's not for any reason other than this is what I could get locally. For anyone that follows my channel, you've already heard this a couple of times. For those of you that are new to my channel, I live in the middle of nowhere. I'm looking at a 30 to 45 minute drive just to the nearest store, and they're both small town. Either direction I go, it's to another small town. If I want to get into the city, I'm looking at an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. So I go with what I can find locally, or I order online. Since this is the first time doing it, I didn't want to order a big bulk package of gelatin online and then not like the process. So I went ahead with 2 small boxes I could get at my local store. This is set up to be 1/4 ounce per packet. So again, we're going to do 2 to 1. This is going to be 3 cups. I'm going to use 6 packets. We're going to get dissolved in the hot water first. So here we go. Probably should have opened all these first. 4 at a time. Yeah. I'm just going to pour that in there. Give it a little swirl just to get some more off of the whisk. All right, I'm going to blend that up. I'll be right back to pour it in to my container. There you have it, all blended up. We're going to pour it into our tray. Try to pour it kind of evenly. An old spoon that I melted once. Smells good. Alright, I'm gonna get that put in the fridge for 30 minutes to an hour till it gets nice and firm, and I'll be back to show you what I ended up with. Quick disclaimer, clean up as you're going, even if you're making a video. Pause making your video and clean up as you're going. I did not, and I'm going to have a fun time getting that hardened jello out of everything. Not really, it's not that difficult. Just soak in hot water. But it's still more difficult than it would have been if I would have just rinsed it out when I was done with it. Now, on to the rest of the video. This has been in the fridge for 30 minutes for me, and it's already nice and firm and spongy. I'm going to cut this up into cubes using a pizza cutter, because I can. Run that thing right in there. For all of those that are new to my channel, I'm not a perfectionist. I just do me. I'm not taking the time to make perfect little cubes. I'm just running it in there. How loud and annoying is that? Alright, let's see if I can get some out. Oh, that's fantastic. Spongy, 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 spongy.
He's so fluffy, I'm gonna die! It's so fluffy!
I'm gonna bring you all in closer. This turned out great in my opinion. It's solid. Got a nice sponge to it, but it's not super hard. That almost looks like peanut butter fudge. And man, that would be a good prank, but it would make some people mad. Alright, I'm going to take a couple of these little cubes. Let's go throw them in the aquarium. See what happens. Oh no, they float. No one told me that was going to be a problem. Gonna have to figure that one out. Will they sink eventually? I don't know. Let's ask this guy. Hey, do you know if those will sink in a minute? He must not speak English. Well, back to the drawing board on that one. They can't all be winners. I'll figure out a way to still use this stuff. I could always put a toothpick through it and shove it into the substrate. Okay. Well, that's that. I told you guys I'd share my failures as much as my accomplishments. So there you go. That guy's just lazy. Taking a hitchhike. Okay, so after playing around with it for a minute, using some toothpicks to hold it down, this seems to be working. The snails instantly flock to it. And I've actually been sitting here laughing because I've been having this one constantly trying to reach out and grab the little block that's still floating. If anyone knows the trick to making this stuff sink, or what I did wrong that caused it to float, please let me know. Otherwise, this will be how I have to do it. Which is fine, because it worked. So it's been about 10 minutes since I dropped the cubes in here. The snails were able to eat a lot of it before it would break free from the toothpick. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this was a success. For anyone that doesn't want to mess with having to weigh down the cubes, I did do some research. A couple things people say to try is to freeze the jello instead of refrigerating it. And other people are saying shake the mixture real well in the container you put it in. Try to get as many of the air bubbles out as possible. To me, it's not that big of a deal to run a toothpick through them and hold them down. I actually kind of like the fact that it floats now, because the little bits and pieces that aren't getting eaten are in the water column. I can just go through and net those out. Makes it easier cleanup for me. Another thing I like about it is that it's fish food made, so it's fish friendly. The guppies are loving it. What's neat about it floating and sinking is that the top feeders have no problem getting to the floating stuff, and the bottom feeders getting to the stuff that sinks. This was a fun little project. I enjoyed playing around with it. It'll be neat to experiment with different ways to make it and different things to do to see the difference in outcome, the different quote-unquote flavors we can come up with, and see which fish and which snails like the best. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, I hope you're enjoying your own aquariums. Don't forget to get out there and get fishy, and we'll see y'all next time.